distributive property of multiplication. Your learning target today is I can use the distributive property to decompose multiplication problems. And you'll know you're successful when you can break down a multiplication problem by using the distributive property of multiplication. Today we are going to be learning about the distributive property of multiplication. And that is when we distribute or share one of the factors. These are factors, right? The numbers that we're multiplying together, in order to break down a problem and make it a little bit more doable or a little bit more easier to do. So sometimes we might come across a multiplication problem that's just too hard. Like, I can't remember 8 times 8. But you might know a different fact that is a times 8 fact, right? Sometimes we learn 2 times 8 or 3 times 8, and those ones are easier for us than figuring out 8 times 8. Well, I'm going to show you today a way that you can use a fact that you already know to figure out a bigger fact. So, in this example of 8 times 8, one of my 8's, so this one that I'm underlining a bunch of times, is going to stay the same. I'm not going to change that 8 at all. But this other 8 that we're going to use, we're going to split. And I know that we're all pretty familiar with splitting. I'll show you a way, though, that we can do that with multiplying. So think of some times 8 problem that you already know. I know that you already know 8 times 2 because that might be one that you've learned in reflex or one that you've learned because you know 8 plus 8 is 16. So 8 times 2 is 16. I'm going to break this apart. So 8 times 8, we're going to break it down to 2 times 8. And I already said that that was 16. Plus, we need to add because this is the 8 that we're splitting. So we split that into a 2. And this is a 2. But remember, we need 6 more 8s to make 8 times 8. So why don't we do another 2 times 8? Because we already know that one. So 2 times 8 and 2 times 8. So our splitting with our 8 is a 2 and a 2. But we know that there's more to that, right? Because so far we have 2, 4. That's like 4 times 8 if I added 16 plus 16. Why don't we do that? So 16 plus 16, we would get 32. So far, we have 32. And I already said this is like 2 and 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's like 4 times 8. So I know that 4 is half of 8. So maybe I can do this one more time and then I will come up with 8 times 8. So 2 times 8, again, we're adding that to our other 2 times 8. We know is 16 plus another 2 times 8, and that's 16. We already solved for 16 plus 16 is 32. That's what we got for these problems that we already did, 32. And this 16 plus 16 is also going to be 32. So what would we get for 32 plus 32? For 64. So we got 64 for 8 times 8 is 64. I want you to see one more time how I did that by how we broke that apart on a fresh new screen. So with 8 times 8, we had left this 8 the same, and the other 8 we had split into a 2, a 2, a 2, and another 2. because we know that 2, 4, 6, 8, we know that 4 2s make 1 8. Okay, and then so when we broke apart 8 times 8, we decomposed that by breaking it down. And decompose just means I'm breaking this down. This 8 times 8, we turned it into a 2 times 8 plus another 2 times 8 plus 2 times 8 plus 2 times 8. We broke that down because these 8s stayed the same, so it was still a times 8 problem, but we had 2, 4, 6, 8. We broke it apart by figuring it out with 2 times 8, but we just had to do that 4 times instead of having 8 times 8 and just being stuck. We were able to figure it out and figure out that it was 64. So with the problem 4 times 7, that might be a tricky problem for you. I am going to, remember, I'm going to look for a known fact or a fact that I already know and decide, because last time 8 times 8, the 8s were the same, right? We had the same factors, and in this case, our factors are 4 and 7. I have to ask myself, okay, am I more comfortable with times 4 facts or times 7 facts? I'm going to say I at least am more comfortable with times 4 facts. So in this case, I'm going to have the 4 stay the same. And I'm going to split the other factor, which is 7. So a times 4 fact that I know 3 times 4. And again, that 4 is going to stay the same. And you know what? I know 3 times 4 and I know 4 times 3 are the same. But I'm just going to try to keep it the same as what we have up here, right? Our 4 is in the front. And so maybe it'll just make it easier to see if the 4 is in front over here. And so when we think about splitting so far, we split our 7 into a 3. And we know that we'll have some more because we're not to 7 yet. I know 3 times 4 is 12. So I'll just write that right up here. Again, I'm going to have another times 4 fact. I'm going to make sure the 4 stays the same. It's got to be consistent. 4 times, well, I know 4 times 4. That's another fact I know. And I know that that is 16. So we split our 7 into a 3 and a 4. And is that true? Does that make 7? 3 and 4, they do make 7. So I don't need to do any more splitting this time. So we have 12 plus 16. That is going to be our answer for 4 times 7 because we split it into a 4 times 3 plus a 4 times 4. So 12 plus 16, well, I know 6 and 2 is 8, and I know 10 plus 10 is 20. So what is our answer for 4 times 7? 28. For this problem, I have 9 times 5. I know a lot of times 5 facts. So that's going to be my known fact that I'm going to keep doing with the distributive property. I'm going to keep that 5 the same. And then with the 9, I'm going to split it. So I'm going to have 4 times 5 or 5 times 4. It's the same fact. And the 5 stays the same, we know, in each of our problems. So that means we're splitting our 9 into a 4. And then I'm just going to stick with that, 4 times 5. And we know that that's 20. That 5 is staying the same. So far we have 4 plus 4. That's 8. So how many more do we need to do? We only need 1 more. So a 1 times 4. I'm sorry, a 1 times 5. is going to be our next one. So there's only one left over. So that means I need to do a 1 times 5. Remember, the 5 stays the same in each problem. And then the other factor, 4 plus 4 plus 1 makes 9. And we know 1 times 5 is 5. So what do we have? We have 20 plus 20 plus 5 would give us 45. So we know 9 times 5 now is 45 by using this distributive property strategy and breaking down a big problem into smaller problems that we already know. All right, at this time I want you to pause the video and I want you to try the distributive property of multiplication with this problem by decomposing it and breaking it down into smaller problems that you already know. Remember, you can ask yourself, are you more comfortable with times 8 facts or times 7 facts? You can pick one of those to keep each number the same. So if you're really good with times 8, maybe you're going to have all times 8 facts. The 8s will be the same. If you are really good with times 7, then maybe your 7s will stay the same. But one of them has to stay the same, and one of them you'll need to split. So remember that and pause the video and try it on your own. All right. So you should have paused the video and tried this out on your own. I want you to know that when I'm doing this problem, you might have broken down your problem differently. You might not have done it the same way I did, and that's okay. What I want you to watch for, though, is to see, did you break down the problem in a way that you think was correct, and did you come up with the correct product or the right answer? Okay, so 8 times 7. I'm going to break this down, and this time I'm going to keep my 8 the same. Okay, this is the number that will stay the same for me, and I'm going to split my 7. Okay, so times 8 facts. You could have broken this down in a lot of different ways, but for times 8 facts, this time I'm going to do 8 times 4. Which is 32. So that 8 stays the same, and that means with that 7, I had split that into a 4 and then another number. And I'm going to do this with 8 times 4 and 8 times 2 because we know that 4 and 2 is 6, right? 4 plus 2 is 6. Right here we have a 7, so that means we need one more. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 8 times what? 1. And we know that's 8. Anything times 1 is itself. 8 times 1 is... So remember, your learning target today is I can use the distributive property to decompose multiplication problems. And you'll know you're successful when you can break down a multiplication problem by using the distributive property of multiplication.